All right, so we're rounding out this week in color class with toner. And so like, first of all, when do you use a toner? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about why you use toner and when. We're gonna talk about what tools to choose. And then we're gonna do some, like, we're gonna talk about the pigment chart and what that entails. So to really get into like depth with toner, we have to do it on hair. We have to do it with color. You know what I mean? So I'm going to give you guys the theory behind it, and hopefully that'll be like a doorway. So when we get back in the building, that all this stuff will like whoosh come together. That would be awesome. So first up, when like, why is toner? What is toner? So we use toner after we lighten hair. So once we've done either a double process, a platinum card, highlights, whatever we've done to something to decolorize hair. And when we decolorize hair, we expose the dominant pigment underlying. So what a toner is used for is to cancel out or diminish the dominant pigment that shows up. So generally, as we're lifting hair, we're seeing colors of yellow, orange, red, orange, yellow, orange. And this is where, you know, we get the, oh, it's brassy feeling, right? So in order to cancel out warm tones, we use a toner. So we're going to be choosing things in the cool family, and generally across the color wheel from whatever, like wherever you land, right? So this is where it gets real important that you have a great understanding of your color wheel. And then you also have a good understanding of the color lines you choose. So let's say we've pre-lightened hair. Then the next thing we have to do is we're gonna have to choose our, what's it called? Choose your weapon, I guess. So Rachel, can I share? I can? So it says only the host can share in this meeting.
I think you have to share content, I guess.
Yeah, whenever I click the share content button, it says only the host can share. But that's okay. We can talk. It's cool. I was just going to show pictures of like Paul Mitchell, the color. So you can choose permanent, demi-permanent, or semi-permanent options. You can really tone with anything. You can even tone with purple shampoo if you're like the palest of yellow. And that's what they are. They're toning shampoos that have violet pigments in them to cancel out yellow. So if you're choosing something permanent, so like Paul Mitchell, the color XG, those are your permanent options. And when you're choosing those, you are choosing them because they're opaque, meaning you can't see through them. You're not going to have any like translucence. You're completely going to cover up the dominant pigment that you're seeing. These tend to be strong because in a permanent color, you have these itty bitty tiny little dye molecules. And whenever you apply developer, it starts to oxidize those and they start to swell inside the hair, right? So you're literally like, you're going to cancel some of the light that's shining through. I love to tone with permanent color. I feel like it gives me a lot of control. It's something that I can sit, watch. I don't know, I feel like I've got a lot more time there. And I love the variety of tonal bases that we have. Rachel, are you saying yeah? See what happens? Mm-mm. Oh, all good. So we have Paul Mitchell the color, we have Paul Mitchell color XG, right? So both of those are good options. The thing to remember with those is that the level system in any toner is like, you have to tone at level, right? So if I lift somebody from a level 5 up to a level 8, and the dominant pigment there is yellow orange, and I choose a level 9 toner, there's not enough dye load saturation in that level 9 tube to help me out with my level 8 hair. So demi-permanent options. We have the demi. right? And then PM Shines. The differences between those. So PM Shines has a brown base. It's always going to be a touch on the warm, like natural side. No matter if you put something like super icy cool on it, it's still going to land and live in a more natural looking tone. It's a shampoo base. I like that it gets all sudsy. And then let's see, PM Shines has also got vegetable and soy protein. So it works like almost like a 6-week deep conditioner. It makes hair really, really shiny. And then you've got the Demi. So Demi does not have a brown base, but Demi permanent colors are going to be translucent. So permanent colors like blue jeans, unless there's a hole in them you can't see through. Demi permanent color is like somebody that's wearing leggings that are too tight and they bend over and you can read the tattoos on their butt, right? So like it's, or like somebody with orange legs that wears blue pantyhose, you can still see through them a little bit, like it's there, right? But it's not, but it is. So that's what Demi permanent color is. And then semi-permanent color is going to be a more sheer finish. So semi-permanent options are Pop XG, Inkworks, your toning shampoos, like your purple shampoo, platinum shampoo, that kind of thing. And I mean, for very, very pale blondes, a semi-permanent might be a good idea. Like in Pop XG, there's a color called Opalescent that's really, really pretty whenever it comes out of the tube and goes into the, you know, on the bowl, and then you put it on the hair. And I mean, it literally looks like opal. But then, you know, you rinse it off and you're like, oh, it's gone, right? So unless somebody's cuticle is just blown wide open, it has a hard time holding on to a semi-permanent color, especially whenever you're using it as toner, because generally with a toner, you're doing this on wet hair or it's like damp towel dried hair. And like, so you already like almost diluted it because you're applying it on hair that's already damp or wet. Hey, I can share now. Yay. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our swatch chart from yesterday. So once we lift hair color, so we started out at, let's say, a level 5, and then we lift them up to a level 7. A lot of people get stuck at level 7 right there at that super orangey, right? But then there's this little tool over here, the pigment chart. So it's telling you that at each level of hair, there is a dominant pigment, what that dominant pigment looks like. Level 7's dominant pigment is orange, which means I need
We can't hear you, Teresa.
Teresa?
What happened to Teresa?
I was just kicked off and logged back in.
I don't know, maybe Wi-Fi. Let's give her a minute.
I can still see a screen, but I just can't hear.
Yeah, it maybe froze or something.
I wonder if she even knows, you know?
Probably. Yeah, we'll just give her a second. me text her. Well, that's kind of weird. Is this what it looks like when I get kicked out for a minute and then come back?
It's not this bad. This is like
prolonged.
that's why I said it in the chat just in case like she could see it there, but maybe we should restart it. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see.
Should we all leave and then log back in?
So I'm gonna leave and then that should like restart it since I started it. So I'll be right back.
Hey.
Hey.
Sarah, have you seen the movie
Here we go.
Something About Misty?
I don't think so. Why?
Watch it on Netflix. You resemble that girl. On the side of you, you like resemble her. I was like, hey, that looks like Misty.
I'm gonna look this up.
It's really funny. It's a funny movie.
Hey, guy. I got kicked out. Sorry.
Yeah, now we're just waiting
I
on
did
this.
too.
But now you're in, but now, okay, now Rachel's back.
I was like, what happened? I was just gone. Okay. So,
You okay?
ready to try again?
That far down, Mama. Tuki, you silly.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah.
Here, that, take that a hand.
Can y'all mute?
Savannah, I think that's you.
All right. Can you guys see the color wheel
Sorry.
again? Okay. So if I get my guess lifted up to a level 9 and I'm seeing yellow, right? What the correct toner would be is directly across the color wheel to violet. But if I choose something blue, say, right? Yellow plus blue is going to turn that hair green. If I were to choose something blue-violet, I'm gonna have a cooler result instead of a neutral result. So whatever happens, like, so this is why people do toning in 2 steps or 3 steps sometimes. So if I wanted to go like a true, like cool platinum blonde, I would have to get to a level 10 and then I would tone in 2 steps. So first I would tone the yellow out by choosing something violet. And then I would tone again with something cooler. So this is all gonna be at level. I have to tone with a level 10 if I have reached a level 10. If I put a level 7 toner on level 10 hair, it's going to make that hair darker. So we have this handy dandy pigment chart here that gives you the answers, right? So keeping a swatch chart or, you know, whatever, a copy of this around until you just memorize these things is probably a really good idea. So if I make it to level 7, I have to choose a blue toner. If I make it to level 8, I have to choose a blue violet toner. If I make it to a level 9, I need violet. If I make it to a level 10, I need violet again, but at a higher level. So basically, the pigment chart, these exist. They're in your theory book. These don't change no matter what line of color that you're choosing to use, whether it's Paul Mitchell or Wella or, you know, anybody. So this is going to be universal across the board just because of the laws of color. So the options that we have, so I'm gonna just use Paul Mitchell XG as an example. The options that we have in our violet, blue violet, and blue hair colors are right over here in the tonal series chart. So ash, 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 if we work our way from the bottom, all this stuff in here is going to be a great toner if you're looking to neutralize. So then the question comes up and you get some like, oh, this happened to me one time. So this lady came in and she wanted yellow highlights. And so we were like, okay, so like natural highlights. And she said, no, yellow highlights. And we were like, all right. So we put the highlights in. She lifted beautifully. She made it to a level 9. And we took her out, blow dried a little bit to show her how it lifted, right? So they were pretty yellow, but a more neutral yellow, like a natural yellow, right? Buttery. And then she said, no, this is not yellow enough. So we went back in and we chose gold. So we went in and put a 9G, so 9 gold hair color on. Now the hair around the highlights was a level like 6. So putting a level 9 on it with 5 volume developer is not going to change the hair color that's in between the highlights, like her natural color, right? So we put the gold on there and we let that process for 10 minutes and we're all looking at it. And if you've ever played with any of the gold series, they're gold, like they're yellow. Like you haven't drank enough water, PP yellow. So we take her back out after we process it and we're like, okay, yeah, here we go. And this lady looked at it and she says, no, this is not yellow. I am from Sweden and I know what great highlights look like. And this is not yellow. We literally had to get Inkworks neon yellow and we had to put it on her hair. And it was the craziest thing, but you can use toner, for any end result. And somebody comes in and they want strawberry blonde highlights, right? So then you're going to choose something that's light and red brown. So it's not just about making platinum all the time. It's just about using your color wheel. Because if I have a guest that comes in and Sally Sue wants strawberry highlights. So I lift her, right, from her level 6 up to a level 9. And then I'm going to tone her, but she wants a strawberry. I'm going to choose something at level 9 in maybe like a red orange or orange tone. But I have to understand and remember that I'm adding that orange to the yellow that I exposed. So it's almost like you're mixing, like taking that dominant pigment and making it part of your end result formula. So whenever I add yellow and red together, I'm going to end up orange, right? Because I'm playing with dominant pigment because I exposed it. If I add yellow and violet together, I'm going to end up in between in the middle. So the same is true whenever you're working your way instead of across the color wheel, around the color wheel. If I add, so we all know the color wheel, right? So if I've got yellow orange hair and I add red violet to it, I'm going to end up somewhere in between, right? So whatever the midway point is here, I would end up with something, even though I put red violet on it, I'm still going to end up looking red orange.
I have a question, Teresa. So I know like in core, I learned that you don't really mix colors, like when it comes to like actually painting hair, the actual hair dye, but you can mix toners.
Oh, absolutely. You can certainly mix toners and you will mix some colors. One of the really cool things about all of the Paul Mitchell colors is that if you're a salon owner and you don't want to keep a huge inventory of backstock, all you have to have in Paul Mitchell color, you have to have every level of G, every level of A, and every level of R. Because those are your primary colors, you can literally mix any of the other tonal bases. So you could create a neutral by mixing gold, red, and ash together. You could create a red violet by mixing 2 parts red and 1 part ash. You could create a violet, equal parts red and ash. You can create a copper with red and gold. I mean, when you get into like gray coverage and stuff, it would get pretty tricky. But one of the things that is really cool that Paul Mitchell did is they based their actual like tonal bases and tonal series chart over here off of the color wheel. So it makes it almost like Color for Dummies. It's one of the easiest color lines to start out working with. Yeah, so you can totally mix color together. It's just a matter of understanding what's going to happen. Because and when I'm talking about like if I put red, if I lift my guest up to this level 9, I'm going to see yellow, right? So there's yellow already on my canvas. And if I add red to that, I'm going to have an orange outcome. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so anyway, so this pigment chart thing is your best friend whenever you're looking at toner. If you're wanting to cancel out an unwanted dominant pigment. Yeah.
Okay, Miss Teresa, when they took me up to like a level 9 and then they put like a PN on it, on my hair, it turned it like a silver.
So here's why. So when you got to this level 9, you were yellow, right? PN is over here in the land of blue violet. So the violet in that tube actually did cancel out the yellow and get you neutral, but the blue part of the blue violet took it cooler, which is why it had that silvery finish.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So you could do that in 2 steps, or you could do it in 1, right? So you could go, okay, I'm going to cancel out all the yellow first with violet, and then my second formula, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add blue violet. And if that's still not cool enough, I could go in and I could add blue, which is where you go from, let me change colors, where you go from neutral to cool to ice cold.
Yeah. Well, this last time they did my hair, I didn't even, after they turned it silver, we did a bleach wash on it, so I don't even have a toner on my hair right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you like a natural blonde. You're not, I didn't think you were looking for that silvery white.
No, I wanted platinum.
Well, that's what platinum is silvery white. Platinum hair, whenever it is wet, will almost have a lavender tint to it. And when it dries, it's white.
Yeah.
So, okay. So tonal basis. Okay, so the other thing is, so this I'm showing you is a permanent option. So these would be opaque. I would not be able to see through them once this is rinsed, because it is a permanent color. Now, this is also not about timing. It's not about letting it process all the way out the full 35 minutes. This is a watch and wait. It could be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It could be up to 35 minutes. But because that hair is just freshly previously lightened, it's more absorbent because the cuticle's blown wide open. Like all the doors are open for everything to come in. So as permanent color starts to oxidize, it does take a little bit longer, but it gives you a more opaque finish because it lives underneath the cuticle. Versus something like PM Shines or the Demi, which lives kind of halfway inside and halfway outside of the cuticle. It's going to give you a more transparent, translucent, like I can see through it, finish. So, and there's nothing that says whenever we're talking about two-step toners, there's nothing that says you don't go in with like, say I get this level 9 again. So I come in with a permanent color and do the violet, right? So that gives a neutral. And then maybe I use a demi-permanent for my second formula to give me something that lives half inside and half outside. It gives me the benefits of a demi-permanent color, being that it's shinier than permanent color. Some of them have those like rebuilders, right? So the protein and the vegetable and soy protein, it's got the intense hydrating complex that's in there. So it's almost like you go in and tone first and then add a second toner, but it's also a deep conditioner, top coat, gloss coat. I mean, kind of like when you get your nails done. If you don't do that top coat, it just doesn't last as long, right? All right. So here's the color. This is the other permanent color XG. That's one we were just looking at. We have demi, right? So the demi colors match up with the color XG. So demi's kind of like try it before you buy it. So in those tonal bases, in the demi, you've got everything in the color XG. And then also Palmital, the color, matches up with PM Shines. All right, so notes on PM Shines. PM Shines is the most conditioning color that we have, but they're also, they all tend to run a little touch warm. So even though that right there in the middle says 9V, so that's a 9 violet, it's still gonna have a little bit of a neutral base to it. And it's because of all of the proteins that are in there. They tend to kind of yellow out. Even if you choose, if you look all the way on the left-hand side, where it says clear shine, if you literally mix clear shine and processing liquid together and put it on like platinum blonde hair, it'll turn it almost yellowy. The demi, this one is, it does not have the brown base. It does have the hydrating complex, so it's a moisturizing color. It creates super shiny hair. What else? I really like the demi because it's, so PM Shines is like pantyhose and demi is like leggings that are too tight. So as far as like how translucent they are. Then you've got your semi-permanents like Pop XG. Semi-permanent colors tend to be kind of fantasy colors, but they can have like those, there's a lavender that's really great for icy white, blonde finishes. And then there's Inkworks. So Inkworks is pretty cool. This one's also, it's a bunch of soy, and Inkworks is actually safe enough that you can apply it to hair and then just blow dry it on. You don't even have to rinse it. So anyway, so these are our tools that we can choose to use. You can also use the platinum shampoo. You can also, the only thing you can't do, ooh, this is good. So the only thing you can't do is in one bowl, I cannot mix a permanent color and a demi-permanent color together. So if I want to use a permanent and a demi-permanent, I have to do that in 2 steps. If I want to choose multiple tonal bases from one or the other, I can absolutely mix those together. But because they oxidize differently and take different developers, you can't mix them up in the same bowl. Adding a semi-permanent color into a bowl of permanent color is not going to do anything. All right, so toner is really just all about that color wheel. It's all about being able to see the exposed underlying dominant pigment. And Kim, do you have a question? There's a hand up there. What's that mean?
Oh, I did. You already answered it.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. I was like, what's the little blue hand at the bottom? So yeah, it's about understanding the color wheel, and it's universal, right? So hair is going to oxidize up the warm side of the color wheel. And a thing to remember about toner is it works. So cool tones cancel warm tones. Warm tones have a very hard time canceling cool tones. So it's like everybody's had a bonfire on the beach, right? So you're down at the beach and you have your bonfire and it's nice and warm and you've had your s'mores. It's awesome. And then here comes the ocean because the tide's coming in. Is the fire going to stop the ocean? No. Your bonfire is not going to stop that tide from coming in. The ocean's going to put the fire out. Right?
Yeah.
So toner works the same way. You would have to have an awfully big fire to stop the ocean. So when you're looking at it and going, okay, well, this hair is too cool and I want to warm it up, you're always going to go, okay, 90% of the time, because there's very few always and never in hair, but you're generally going to pick up something that's neutral, natural, like the N series, NN, NB, those things. I wouldn't, like if somebody's hair turned green, I'm not going to just automatically put something red on it. If somebody's hair turned blue on accident, I'm not going to go find some orange. You end up with like muddy, murky, swamp water, like dirty puddle water looking results. Yeah, so you pick something neutral if it's accidentally too cool. Generally speaking, though, you're not going to have that challenge unless you're lifting out some old artificial color that like turned green. So if you guys have ever gone purple, right? So you get your hair nice and bright blonde, and then you go in and you put violet. So straight up purple pop, and you have purple hair, right? And then it starts to fade. And then as it fades, that purple hair starts to turn green. And the reason is because how do you make purple? You make purple with red and blue, right? So red and blue come together, they make purple. As the red starts to fall out faster, what's left over is the blue from the purple on your yellow hair. So that makes that weird greenish fade out.
I have that.
Do you? From purple?
Yeah, remember because we did my hair pink, purple, and teal?
Uh-huh.
This is what I got
But where
left
your
of.
purple was, you've got some green going on?
I'm all washed out. See?
Ooh, Kayla. Yes, ma'am. I see that. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so funny because you're like, I put a super cool, it's purple. Why in the world would it turn green? And it's just because the red fades out faster.
Well, I'm going to get it redone this time, when we go back to school.
Nice. Awesome.
Okay, so I'm so
I'll do a
happy you
black
said that
shadow root
because
instead of a purple one.
my purple rinsed out and I went on a date and he's like, oh yeah, I can see a tinge of green in your hair. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. It's no.
Yeah,
That makes
unfortunately, it is possible.
So with the royal purple that was in my hair,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just one, I mean, it wasn't like a concoction of anything. So does that mean it fades a certain way?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
just that one particular color?
No, I mean, any purple, you can mix red and blue together and make purple. You can squirt purple out of a tube that's like just straight up violet or royal purple or any of those. But you're generally going to find that red, like artificial red color molecules will fade quicker than yellows and then blues. So yeah, it's not necessarily specific to that tube of color. It's kind of with all fantasy purples. There are very few of them that actually will fade and end up at like lavender. They'll generally go green.
She could use purple Kool-Aid, Teresa, and it won't fade.
Kim, we have heard that story. Mm-mm.
So I did
So
notice that
bad.
like it did fade to a pretty violet color, but maybe I'm just like extremely long overdue because that's not even that color anymore. So,
Well, and also, how blonde was your hair before it went on? Like how busted up is your cuticle?
oh, it was white.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, at this point, you're looking at like an old, almost like a stain, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, in the bottom your Tupperware whenever you like, you've watched it 10 times and you can't get that, like, it's there. Why is it there? Right. It's that same.
Okay, that's interesting.
All right. So what other questions do you guys have about toner? This was pretty surface level, and I'm telling you, once we can get in, I've got an awesome like swatch exercise that just really turns on the light bulbs.
I guess I had a question about the permanent toners. So if you used a permanent toner, is it bad to go over again with another, like a different toner, another permanent toner? Like, what does that do?
Oh, okay. Well, so when you're using toner, your volume of developer is very low, right? So your rate of oxidation slows down. You end up with, so like, even though it's a permanent tube of color with those tiny little dye molecules, if I apply 20 volume developer, they're going to get this big. If I apply 10 volume, they're going to get this big. If I apply 5 volume, it's just going to a little bit, right? So I run much less risk of damaging. So no, it's not bad to like do a 2-step toner both with permanent, because you're using either 5 volume or 10 volume developer, depending on how strong the underlying dominant pigment that's exposed is. And especially like orange is the one, because you can either have like sherbet orange or you can have like orange, like the outside of an orange peel orange, right? So depending on that, so if I've got outside of an orange peel orange, I might choose a 10 volume developer because I want those molecules to get a little bit bigger to cancel out. If I've got like orange sherbet, I might use a 5 volume developer because I don't need so much, but I still need a permanent result. Everything ultimately is always going to come back down to your canvas, right? So is it fine, medium, coarse? Is it like straight, wavy, curly, extra curly? Even plays a part, because the curlier hair gets, the more fragile it is. So when you apply lightener to it, you can compromise the curl pattern, but also you can end up having a really uneven result, because everywhere that curly hair bends, it flattens out, right? So straight hair is like an actual circle, and the curlier hair gets, the flatter it gets. Just like if you've ever taken a plastic straw and twisted it up and then you undo it and it has all those little white marks in it. Curly hair works the same way. So those are all little weak points. And then whenever we start playing with color on that, the weak points lift faster because they are weaker than like in where it's not in the bend, right? You got to look at hair history. What have they done to it before?
Like,
you know, where has it been? Do they flat iron it every day? Like heat damage, you use a heat protector. Those types of things will absolutely change. And then, I mean, everybody's going to lift a little bit different, but also you can have different amounts of lift on the same head of hair, because it's not like if you've got medium hair, every single strand on your head is medium. You've got a mix of some coarse hairs and some fine hairs and some medium hairs going on in there.
when you have banding on the same person trying to tone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that, and if it lifts more at the new growth, like right at the root, than it does anywhere else, you can end up with hot roots, to where you have to go back in with a little bit darker tonal formula there, because maybe it lifted a little bit too much. There's so many, I mean, like, just like getting in a car, there's just so many different controls to adjust. I mean, there are some things that are going to be the same. I can pretty well guarantee you that car's got a steering wheel, right? But I can't guarantee you that the air conditioner works and that the radio is going to work, and, you know, that, okay, is it standard or automatic? Like that kind of stuff. So, I mean, all of these little controls and things, but this is why, you know, we're chemists as hairdressers, because we have to have an understanding of, you know, all these different variables in order to give our guests a great professional service. So, dun, 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 the more you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everybody learned a thing, at least one. My goal was 5, but, you know, if you learned one thing, I'm good with it.